Hi, Dr. Megan Ford, back with you again. Today, I am so excited because I happen to be joined by one of my favorite people, Dr. Michael Thomas, and we are going to be talking about Dr. Thomas's wonderful book, Black Financial Culture. So, welcome, Dr. Thomas. You are such an inspiration to all of us, and I'm so glad to be chatting with you today. To start out, can you give us a brief summary of your book, Black Financial Culture?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and again, thank you for having me, Dr. Ford. I appreciate all the amazing and wonderful work that you've done for students and supporting the University of Georgia in so many different ways and for so many years. You've definitely been a bedrock of our program, so we appreciate you. As it relates to my book, the inspiration for it actually comes from the Japanese art of Kintsugi. So even though I don't really speak directly to Kintsugi, the spirit of it emanates in the book. And so if you would look at the cover page, you'll see this heart and you see like this gold lacquer covering the heart. And so the idea of Kintsugi is that things that have been broken and have been mended back together can be done so in a way that actually can reveal our scars, can reveal our life experiences, not as an element of shame or guilt, but as something that we can highlight and make us more beautiful of an instrument than we were previously. And I think that thread of it, and you and I both know that so many individuals deal with money guilt, money shame, and a whole host of different things, or they feel broken and they don't know how to move forward in their brokenness, or if it's even worth for them to go through a healing process. And so, like, this whole notion of kintsugi is that life doesn't have to define us. It will refine us if we allow it to. And if we engage fully in the process, even in our lowest of lows, we can still show beautifully despite how life has impacted us. So ultimately, that's the spirit of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I encapsulated a lot of messages from my lens of experiencing Black culture. So it isn't a book that's a monolithic way of thinking about cultural experiences, but more specifically, me internalizing the experiences that I had
Mm-hmm.
with other people, with systems, with family, so on and so forth, and how that ultimately has impacted the way that I've engaged in money from an authentic viewpoint of self that's navigating notions of Blackness and Black culture. And what does that mean? And where do these things come from? And so I think that within it is a universal theme because Black financial culture just doesn't mean Black in terms of Black culture. It means Black in terms of absorption of light, which facilitates and creates warmth. So the thread and idea of this book was to pull all these different things into it so that people can feel connected and to resonate with it, regardless of their background that they come from, because you'll see that a lot of these themes are universal. And so that's kind of like the gotcha. It's like I'm reading this book that's about Black people, but then as I'm reading it, I'm like, you know what? That's my family.
Mm.
You know what? We experience that too, which this whole notion of creating warmth within this context of Blackness so that otherness can actually resonate and draw closer to an experience that maybe oftentimes we don't allow ourselves to experience, to actually see that there are threads in connection of unity. And then lastly, Black in terms of in the Black. And the thread is not just financially, but also in the Black in terms of being emotionally whole, right? So there's this multi-layered approach contextualized with Kintsugi in terms of perfection is not required. And that as you live life, even with the scars, they can show beautifully and be an elegant reflection of who you're becoming and not necessarily who you were.
Wow. Thank you for speaking to all of that so quickly and coherently and giving us some sense of kind of the backdrop. It feels like this book is really multi-layered
It
and has
is.
this level of universality as well that's really important to acknowledge and to note. And I love you talking about how oftentimes money and money messages really do leave many of us feeling like there is this incompleteness, there is this not measuring up or this brokenness. It's so important to be able to draw from like this to lead you on a new path of discovering
Absolutely.
wholeness and beauty in the brokenness.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I honestly, I would say that some of the backdrop for the book warps into this notion of what is the work that I need to do before I do the work. So before I sit down and budget, do I have anxiety around budgeting? Right. So even if I want to budget and adhere to a budget or a spending plan, but if anxiety keeps creeping up, then it's going to overwhelm my emotional response and probably engage. I'm probably going to engage in a flight response as opposed to a fight response. And then I'm not going to budget. And then I'm going to guilt myself and shame myself and not have compassion for self because I'm not doing the thing that I know that I should be doing, but I didn't address the internal elements of self that are necessary before I do the work. If I'm going to invest, if I don't understand volatility and how volatility triggers me in the market, I can invest, but if the market goes down 10% or 15%, and I feel unsafe and insecure and unstable. And it's triggering because my background is littered with situations of instability and all these different things. Well, I can invest, but you and I both know that you can't really experience the magic of compound interest unless you invest and stay invested over a period of time. So much of the work that's out there is the what you do, and what I tried to do is think about, well, what are the barriers that ultimately prevent people from doing the thing? So before I do the thing, let me engage with these barriers that are often rooted in my lived experiences, trauma, financial socialization, how I've internalized the world around me for various reasons before I start the process, and to do it in a way where it doesn't feel as if I'm calling you out, the reader, but I'm sharing my own vulnerability. I'm sharing where I failed. I'm sharing where I've experienced significant loss. I'm sharing I'm sharing that I'm in the mix of this journey with you. And so if you can see how imperfect my life is, then maybe you won't place so much weight on the imperfections in your life, and consider that a lot of people are sharing a similar journey as you, so you don't feel isolated and alone. Don't feel isolated and alone, and that there is community where you can shine brightly despite your past. Then maybe it's going to be this one slight little nudge to encourage you to take a step that you otherwise would not have taken a step. If you look at the cover page of my book, I did not include Michael Thomas, PhD. I did that intentionally because I didn't want people to look at it and think, oh, here's this academic or this person sitting in an ivory tower or this person who has it all together and is now telling me what I need to do with my life. No, I'm actually doing the complete opposite. I'm sharing how my life is imperfect, and how even in those imperfections, even in moments where I've wanted to just completely give up, that for whatever reason, whether it's, I mentioned you in a book in terms of a session that you and I had many, many years ago, in terms of this whole idea notion of normalizing trauma. It was one of the first times where anyone had shared with me that you don't have to normalize that and it shouldn't be normal. Right. And it was just really an eye opening experience for me. And it helped me to get through the tragic loss of my sister at that point in time. Like, you're in it, quite honestly. Right. And I'm sharing how I didn't want to go to therapy, and I'm here and I'm serving people. I find myself in a position where I'm calling and scheduling an appointment and I'm canceling because I don't want to wrestle with the conversation. I'm experiencing what my clients are experiencing. And I'm actually vulnerably sharing those really intimate moments that we experience, and then how I work through those things, either perfectly or imperfectly, to let you know as the reader that we're not going to engage any of this stuff perfectly. And I'm not either. It's a shared experience of becoming, and we continue to do it each and every day. And so that's kind of like the backdrop of it in terms of really leaning into vulnerability, not leaning into my expertise, but utilizing my expertise as a backdrop to provide opportunities for individuals to engage with only if they choose to, not because I'm telling you to. So I'm trusting the reader and the audience in terms of saying you have ownership of your life. And I'm only providing these little tidbits tidbits for you to use when it's right for you to use them, but you have agency. And I trust your agency and I have confidence in you as the reader. So I didn't want this to be paternalistic. I wanted it to be vulnerable and I wanted it to thread all the things that you and I both know, but not in a way that's academic, but then in a way that's digestible. And for anybody, regardless of their walk of life, can pick it up and say, you know what? I actually enjoyed reading this and I don't like reading.
Yeah, I really do appreciate you putting yourself in this book, as a model for imperfection, being normal, and that you offer the reader this agency for themselves. That's so empowering, I think, when you are consuming content on money. Often what you'll find is do it this way and you'll be
You'll
successful.
be successful.
Formulaic. And while that can be fine and work, and there is some usefulness to that, I think where you and I tend to live is more in the gray. And our experiences with real human beings and doing this work is really very much that it's shades of gray. It's not so black
Yes.
and white. And so that's a really useful message and a really empowering message. And you using yourself as the vehicle for helping others to reflect and learn for themselves is really such an incredible gift. So if you had a couple of like key takeaways, bullet points for people who maybe have not yet picked up the book, what might you offer for them?
Yeah, I would argue that if you're into elements of empathy, compassion for others and compassion for self, if you are into rawness, if you're into storytelling, and if you're into knowing that life is imperfect, but it's so much about what we do with those imperfect moments that gives it that zest, authenticity, and vulnerability. I think that you would enjoy my book, quite honestly, and just know that it's a shared journey. I tried to write it in a conversational tone. Actually, my hope is that you feel like we're just having a conversation. Like we're friends and we're talking about stuff and I'm sharing some very vulnerable stuff and even in the recesses of your mind, you're kind of sharing with me in the context of it. I also think that it's a really cool book where if you have family members and you know that there are conversations that we need to have about money, but you try to approach it, but it kind of feels like it's judgmental when it comes from you. I think that this is an excellent book where you could actually do a book club with your family where it's another voice engaging in their vulnerability, their heartbreak, their triumphs and successes that can actually foster a family conversation around money that's rooted in grace, care, compassion, understanding someone's story, which can actually give you the tools and the language to engage in a healthier conversation with others. Because I even challenge some concepts and ideas. Are you really helping or are you hurting? Even though it's the right thing to say, you actually could be hurting and not helping. So what does that actually look like? I would argue that this is the book for you. So it's 100 pages. I did that intentionally
Yes.
because I know that my mom does not like to read. So it is dense. There's a lot in that 100 pages. But that being said, I wrote it so that my mom, who doesn't like to read and all these other different things, that if she read it and enjoyed it, I knew that any and everybody else would read it and enjoy it. So it's mom proofed, if that means anything. And then the last thing I would say that it really is a love letter. And that's the way it's art for me. I don't really look at it like I was writing a book. It's art. It's a love letter. There's poetry and prose in a way that I communicate things. It can be technical in certain levels without being overly technical, and it's human. And so if those things matter to you as you read a book and you're looking for a book on money that you probably haven't read before, I would argue that this might be one of them. So I look forward to hearing how you enjoy it. And yeah, that's my gift.
Truly is. It truly is a gift. This time with you, as always, is a gift, Michael. So thank you so much for talking with us, giving us kind of the Cliff's Notes
Yeah.
version of Black financial culture. And it was wonderful to chat. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Megan.